Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success, and in our current climate, maximize safety while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. For this episode, we are recording live from the fourth and final day of InTents, the Farmers Market Conference 2021.
Live, virtually live. Go ahead. Carry on.
Hey everyone, I'm one of your hosts, Brjiet Myers. I'm a longtime Farmers Market manager, Vendor 101 teacher, and I'm the education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Catt White, director of San Diego Markets, still an active Farmers Market manager, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of the Farmers Market Pros community and InTents, the Farmers Market Conference.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer, marketing director for Farmers Market Pros, and I was the logistics coordinator for InTents, the Farmers Market Conference.
Oh, she still is.
Oh, well, now you're the coordinator for 2022, so get on it. Got 360 days.
I hope she's not trying to break us into any bad news there.
She would never.
She's
would
still
never
here.
again.
I'm just ready for that margarita. So
Yeah.
That's right.
Just needs a margarita, a nap.
I wish one of us had gotten that award so we could have a really big margarita glass. Right?
I was having some technical difficulties at that point, but you stole my margarita joke.
Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to type it in there, but...
we can use one of the coffee cups here at our Airbnb. They're pretty big.
Somebody pointed out that for next year, if we're going to have all this margarita talk, we should supply a margarita recipe. So,
you know what?
Season.
We'll put it in the newsletter.
We should have Sarah Marshall from Marshall's Hot Sauce write us a margarita
That's a
recipe.
great idea.
Amazing.
She's the recipe queen.
She is. She's
right.
the best. We'll get that into the newsletter. Keep an eye on that chat.
Yeah.
Because I can't see it. Because I'm blind. They moved my computer too far away from me.
I got you.
All right.
All right, well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. Today we are coming at you from the very last session of InTents, the Farmers Market Conference 2021. Woohoo!
Woo.
Wow, that was a whirlwind.
That was.
Fastest 4 days of my
That was
life.
fast and furious. Yep.
It was. Kept us moving. And there were so many, for us as conference organizers, there were just some interesting pros and cons to virtual versus live and in person. So I think Justine and I didn't sleep at all the last 3 weeks.
4.
4. All right.
Justine's like 20.
Yeah. Brjiet either, but because she was dealing with her children.
Been homeschooling.
Yeah.
Dabbling in the conference once in a while. Just bothering Justine enough.
A little more dabbling this year. But Justine has been really busy. And then during the 4 days, Justine was also really busy keeping track of technical things. I was pretty busy dealing with speakers and making sure that we were all going the right direction with speaking sessions and then also talking constantly. So I need a margarita that's made. My recipe for margaritas today will need to include some... some honey for sure.
Yeah, you just need to
some
put
kind
like a
of
shot of
throat.
tequila and some chamomile tea.
That's right. It's some tea. That's right. Some
go.
nice hot tea
Get some
and a little
rest.
slug of cough syrup or something for my throat. So I think that's where I'm
That's
going.
awesome.
That sounds
Monitor
scary.
you, actually.
No driving for me. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's where we are now. We've been really busy. What we have found is though we've had to pay a ton of attention and really stay on top of wrangling a lot of people that were not only really good at being where they should be at the right time, most of them, but also trying to make sure that everybody's technology matched up, which is, kind of a challenge, especially when you look at everybody's in different parts of the country. We are by nature, since we're farmers market people, we have folks that are in rural areas, so internet connection strength was not always as good as it could be. So we definitely had some challenges there. Our conference platform is amazing in many ways and also a little bit clunky in other ways, so that stayed complicated. On the bright side, as Justine and Brjiet pointed out, no, we weren't hauling any furniture this year. So usually,
Or big cows.
or giant cows or pigs. We have
Plaster
big
cows.
Yeah, we have big fiberglass cows and pigs that are lovely, that are always hauled to the conference site. We didn't have to haul potted plants or the furniture for our panel sessions or move the furniture from one room to another as there was a dinner or a reception or a classroom. So we escaped all of that. That was nice.
Yeah.
And our days were shorter overall once the conference started than they usually are.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, in a lot of ways it was really fun. Like the 4 days of conference sessions, I think in a lot of ways I was able to, although I was on 2 separate computers and emailing people and talking to speakers, and my phone was blowing up. It did kind of feel like I was able to pay attention to the sessions a little bit more, just because usually at the conference we're spaced out in a few different rooms, and Brjiet and I, while Catt is on stage, we're texting each other and running back and forth and trying to wrangle everybody. It's like a herding cats, getting people between the different sessions and going back from lunch breaks and bio breaks. So, and just in terms of moving people and getting them in the right place, I think this year was a little bit easier. And I think the biggest joy was just being able to see all these people that we know from the farmers market industry, that we know their names, we've connected to, but we have never been able to get them out to San Diego, whether for budget reasons or just logistically, or they're not able to take time off from their market. So it was so fun to see people be able to pop into our market. I saw their little name pop in when they joined the session, and even if they were only able to join here and there, it was really special to our registration it was like doubled this year from our biggest year, and so that was the biggest joy, is just seeing so many more people participate.
Yeah, that's been amazing.
Yeah, for sure, just getting everybody in, because I know we have a lot of people that we connect with like over social media and things like that have just never been able to make it out to San Diego during our conference, and so it was nice to get them in the same virtual room. And yeah, my lunch vendors weren't blowing the fuses in the resource lounge during like the best sessions, and so I wasn't in there handling that and missing all that content. We didn't have to call
a maintenance guy.
I didn't have to help us out. Yeah, I missed my maintenance guy. He's my best friend over there at Marina Village. So I'm sure he's missing me right now, but yeah, it was just a different kind of unique experience, and I'm grateful for it. And it doesn't feel like it's a less than experience to me. Yeah. It just feels like a different experience, and we get to really absorb all the content and somehow get connected, even tighter as a farmers market community group.
That's right.
Virtually. I will say I do sympathize with all my kids' teachers, because teaching on this virtual platform when people are dropping out, or they're muted, or they can't type, or it's buffering, and it's like, that's a lot of high stress, and those teachers are just doing that every day, and just bless them.
Yeah.
So now we have a lot of empathy for that.
That's right. Yes. Shout out to all the teachers that might also be in the farmers market industry.
And I also feel a lot of empathy for those broadcast news producers that are running around trying to make a live event happen on screen. So shout out to everybody that knows how to do that.
Yeah, that's right. And also watching it, I feel like I don't really spend a lot of time all day staring at the screen. We do things digitally, but that's a lot of, especially when you're really trying to pay attention and learn through this kind of platform, it's a lot of like straight on your eyes, and you're sitting in a chair all day, and our breaks were not very long because we had so much content. We had to kind of squeeze it in. So to all of our attendees, just really sticking it out and sitting in their chair and paying attention. I feel like that's
staring at a screen. So you're saying if we do virtual conference programming next year, we need to include those magic blue glasses in the swag bags, right?
Blue light glasses.
Blue light glasses.
I actually almost caved and bought a pair like last week, but I was like, whatever damage I've done to my eyes is
too late.
Just gonna have to live with it. It's too late.
No. Anything in the chat that
we're getting some really awesome questions in the chat. So I don't know if you want to start with unanswered questions.
Let's start with unanswered questions, partly because we've asked Tamara Cameron to hang around because we had an unanswered question that came up from 3 or 4 people all at once right at the end of the session that she and Kelly gave on online ordering and online markets. So let's answer that just in case Tamara wants to go get a real margarita and doesn't have one handy. And then we can talk about what else is in the chat that we are in terms of unanswered questions, and then we can go back to a little bit of talk about our favorite sessions and what we're doing next. So Tamara, one of the things that came up that I don't think was clear, we talked a lot about the philosophy of the online markets and how you ran yours and how you set them up, but we didn't get too much into the nuts and bolts of setting them up because we knew we had a demo coming up right after that with the online platform that you use actually. And what came up at the very end of your session and then at the end of the demo and didn't get answered is that I think a lot of people were surprised to hear that the online platform doesn't pay out to the vendors. So I think a lot of us, including me, honestly, had in my head that was part of that process and that it was seamless. So we would love to hear, can we pull Tamara in? Can we pull Tamara in? Okay, Tamara, we're going to send you a notification if you accept it. We'd like to hear how do you manage that process? Are you writing checks? Do you have ACH deposits set up? How's the money from those pre-orders getting to your farmers and vendors?
All right, we are waiting for Tamara to respond. And guess what? I can edit this part out because this will be not airing live.
That's true. Yeah. So
there she is, though.
I made it.
Yay!
Can you turn Tamara up a little bit?
Yeah. I think so. There you go. I'm used to a Mac. There we go.
The best.
I didn't hear the question.
There we go. Oh, so our question, Tamara, was this. We we didn't concentrate all that much on nuts and bolts of how start to finish you perform the market. It was more about how you decided to do an online market and how that looks to customers and how it looks to vendors. And one of the kind of nuts and bolts question that came up a bunch, and I don't know the answer either, and I'm curious, is we didn't realize until almost the very end of the demo presentation, not yours, but Amy's, that the platform doesn't pay out to the farmers and vendors.
No.
So you have to do something with that afterwards. So we had a lot of people say, so how does that look? So are you writing checks? Do you have ACH deposit systems set up? How much time does it take, and how do you figure out how to get that income from the pre-orders to the farmers and vendors?
So the way our system is set up, I get this really great report that tells me exactly what I owe every vendor. And then I just go in and put the checks in our bill pay in our bank account.
Okay.
I looked at ACH last year, and at that point, when we didn't know if we were actually going to make any money or not, it seemed prohibitively expensive. Now that we're a year in, I am going to go back and check and see just how prohibitively expensive it was, because I don't actually remember.
Right. Okay. So your bill pay system in your bank is just writing physical checks and mailing them to the farmers and vendors. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's not that complicated. It sounded kind of, it's like, wait, what now?
No, it's not bad. It takes me maybe 20 minutes on Tuesday to print out the report, put all the checks in the bank, and it's not that big of a deal.
Perfect. I think that was our last unanswered question from that session. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much, you guys. What a great conference again this year.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Welcome to hang around and listen, but we won't keep you on the spot anymore.
Thank you.
Thanks. What else do you got?
Great. All right. We have some other questions. So we have one from Hannah Hubbard, and she says, could you address some of the challenges that are unique to all volunteer markets like mine?
Oh, wow. I guess we should have kept Tamara online because I don't have an all-volunteer market. In fact, there's some federal labor laws that are a thing, but there's also huge labor law issues in California with using volunteers at markets that actually create income, which ours does. We're not grant funded, we're self-supporting through vendor fees, and then there's actually a fundraising component that goes back to our BID. So we don't have a good answer for that. We can try and get a Tent Talk podcast guest to come back and talk about that, or if somebody wants to pop an answer into the chat here, we can get that conversation going.
That's also a really great topic if you're part of our online Farmers Market Pros community on Facebook. I know we have a lot of people in there that have markets that have a lot of volunteers, or they are volunteer market managers. So if you want to post that question there, we can include a link here in this chat that you can click into that and join our group. And that's been one really kind of track along with the conference, that some people have been taking some of the conversations from these sessions and going into our Facebook group and kind of keep those conversations going throughout the year. So
right, and I suspect that Facebook group's going to be really busy this week.
Yeah,
as people are trying to pick up on those conversations that we got started and weren't able to finish and weren't able to get all those questions and answers in.
Yeah, I kind of tracked a lot of the questions that people seem to be chatting a lot about in different sessions that we were having, and so I wrote down the starter question for all those chats, and I'll kind of feed those into the community group just to kind of remind people, hey, this is something that you guys are really interested in talking about and sharing resources or just sharing information or kind of surveying each other on, so we can kind of just keep those conversations moving, and you can have a place where you can go and look at that data later instead of, the platform's going to end at some point here.
That's right. Fade away.
Great. We have another really awesome question from Andrew Graham. He says, I really enjoyed the anti-racist toolkit for farmers market sessions. Me too.
Me too.
Evolving farmers markets to be less white spaces is work that we all need to be taking seriously. Can you lift up questions around this issue, such as, should we aim to create more all BIPOC vendor markets so that vendors can build community? How can we encourage more BIPOC customers to shop at farmers markets?
And those are both really good questions. In my opinion, I think we can support BIPOC operated markets that focus on BIPOC vendors and farmers. I don't think I, as a white woman, should be the one in charge of that, honestly. I think what I need to do is support Black farmers market managers in assembling Black, BIPOC, indigenous populations to be in that kind of a farmers market. So I think we really need to let them lead. We had a couple of people offer to do that session in this conference who were like me, an older white person. And I didn't think that was appropriate. We really looked for people that were operating in that space from that population. They know what the issues are. So I think it's important that we keep that there. I think the other interesting thing is, and Chantel brought this up about the Black farmers market in Durham. Shiny brought it up in a later session about her come-through market in Portland. And an interesting comment that has come up is that the Black-operated markets focused on Black vendors and farmers are still seeing largely white customer bases. So that's interesting. Mm-hmm. So I think what that leads to, in my opinion, is that we need more education and markets, and it's really tough right now with COVID, but I think we need to include more educational content. We maybe need to reach out to the schools in our neighborhoods and in the neighborhoods beyond ours and talk about what you can find at the farmers market that you can't find at the grocery store, or how to take favorite recipes from different cultures and make them with that fresh food from our local farmers and what's available in our local farm and food systems. So I think those are all ways that maybe we can encourage that.
Also, something I think about as I am doing the social media for our market is like making sure that I'm finding photos of people of color that do visit the market and just kind of reflecting back, like, our market is open for everybody, and making sure that the feed isn't just full of white people shopping, because I think that is kind of a stereotype of farmers markets. It is a white dominated space. So just reflecting on your farmers market feed that we do have shoppers of color, and that we want more shoppers of color, and we want everybody to feel welcome at the market. So I think that's maybe just one really simple, who knows how effective it is, but just maybe even a thing to get yourself into, making sure that your market or your farmers market manager or your social media manager or whoever is doing that is just thinking of all the different people that come to your market.
Well, because I think if we're not making the conscious effort, everybody's tendency is to post a picture of someone that looks like them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you look for. Who looks like me? Oh, I like that. I like the looks of that person. They look a little like I do in the mirror. So, thinking about that, we have because we're in this big urban area and a large market, we've got a terrifically diverse set of customers and vendors. And we just need to concentrate on making sure that we lift up our vendors and farmers that haven't had those opportunities in the past.
Yeah.
We're totally open, though, to any input that anybody else has. Andrew, if you want to keep it coming, keep your thoughts coming. Anybody else that has thoughts on that, you can always email us. Email us if you'd like to chat with us on a podcast, if you're doing something proactively in that field, too.
Yeah, that was a really great question. Thank you so much, Andrew. And one other thing that I wrote down, we were going to get into salient points made and notable quotes from our conference this week. But one thing, again, from Chantal's presentation yesterday, something to think about for market managers was just some of the rules that we have at our markets, specifically being how far away vendors that are a lot of markets have kind of like, you can only grow 100 miles away, or there's rules as to how far producers can travel to participate in markets. And Chantal brought up a really good quote that ends up servicing certain types of farmers, and specifically farmers that own their land or own land in areas that are close to farmers markets, which typically that land costs more than a land that isn't near farmers market. So that was just a really nuanced point that I had never thought of, and how maybe re-examining some of those rules that are just baked in, or things that we've always kind of just done because that's the way that we do them. Maybe it's time to reevaluate some of those things that we always just did.
That's a really good point. We're aware of a farmer's market that broke off from a market in a city in Alabama. And it's a group of farmers that said that the bigger market that's been operating for a long time should limit spaces to farmers that own their land.
Versus lease it.
Yeah, so not just producers, but producers that own their land. And their contention is that there's a level of expense associated with owning your land, and that it's an unfair playing field if you're also allowing farmers in that lease their land. But the effect of that is to take people that are inheriting land, that have generational ownership in land, and advantaging them over people that are just starting or that haven't been able to own land or have had land taken away from them, and are now leasing as a way to get started again. So to me, I understand where they're coming from, but I think it's landing them in entirely the wrong direction. And so that's why the bigger market hasn't adopted that rule. And some of these folks have broken off to start their own little market, sadly down the street at exactly the same time and day as the bigger market, which seems kind of ugh to me. But yeah, so there's that going on.
Awesome. Really great points all around. So we have another question, and this is definitely one for Brjiet and Catt, because I'm like a new market manager. I'm like a baby market manager. I was a vendor. And I'm a farmers market conference producer. But I'm new to actually being boots on the ground person in the info booth. So this is a question from Allie Jacobs, and she says, what advice or recommendations would you give to new market managers that didn't receive any training, are self-learning as a one-person team?
Ouch. Although I will say, I self-learned as a one-person team when I was just starting out. But I did have a lot of experience in other kind of related fields. So what do you say, Bridge? I mean, we hate to be self-serving, but we do have a class coming up.
Plug it, baby.
We are working next as soon as tonight after the conference wrap. We're going to be recording.
We're pulling it all-nighter.
Right, Justine? We're going to get Market Manager 101 off the ground ASAP. So that'll be Catt and I doing education program for market managers and just teaching, brand new market managers, people who are just starting out. Sounds like someone like Allie, who's just starting out, maybe a one-person team or a really small team. And then also we'll have a lot of great information about people who already are operating farmers markets and maybe kind of fell into it or got into it and didn't realize all the little details that you have to kind of manage as a farmers market manager. So we'll definitely be going through all of that in detail. But when you get started, I would say, figure out who your community is. To kind of build off of what Ali Ball was saying in her last session, kind of like, who are you marketing to? Like, who's your ideal customer for the market? And then kind of don't back away from those kind of goals. And one of the downfalls I see with new market managers, especially if they're kind of smaller and starting out, is that they get a little desperate to like fill their market with as many vendors, like whoever wants to apply can come because you just want tents on the street. And I always say that like one of the most important things that even I've had to check myself on a lot is be, selective about, get those great producer only or whatever your, goal is for your farmer's market. Get those people in your market, even if it's a smaller number, because you want quality over quantity just in vendors and farmers, just like you want quality over quantity in shoppers. You don't want people coming out. Who's going to come out to your market, and how is that going to build revenue for your farmers and shoppers? And just kind of always keeping that in mind from the very beginning, because it's really hard to back that up.
Well, and it's tough I think what people don't remember is that the really good farmers and vendors want to be with other really good farmers and vendors. So if you're just putting people on there to fill the street, you'll find that your really quality folks won't want to play. They won't, because they don't want to be associated with, kind of a swap meet mood, for instance. The other thing you can do, Allie, too, I'm not sure where you are, but there's a lot of great regional farmers market associations now. Those didn't, some of them are long-standing, but a lot of them didn't exist even 5 or 6 years ago. So there's a lot more resources than there used to be. You may be able to go to a state association in your area. If you're not aware of one, feel free to pop us an email or pop that question into our Facebook group, because other managers in your area will probably be able to give you tips as well. And also Farmers Market Coalition. They've got some pretty good training information on their website. If you're a member, they have a really low-cost membership. And if you pop on there, there's a lot of resources available there. Yeah,
great. And then I want to take one more question because it kind of relates to this, and it's something that we talk about all the time. So Jessica asks, can you elaborate on the 4 Ps, which is a great thing for new market managers to know.
That's true.
So obviously we talk about this a lot, and we have a whole episode all about 4 Ps. So first off, Jessica, if you want to check out the full podcast that we did on it, you can just type in 4 Ps, go to farmersmarketpros.com/podcast, and you can search for 4 Ps. But you want to give us the like super quick abbreviated version, or just name them?
Sure. So, and there were 4 when we started, and then
now there's like 20.
Now there's so many P's
We
that
stick
apply.
to the same kind of over and over, but it's more like 6, give or take.
Yeah, but we go, and this year, it got even more complicated because it was like, and pandemic. So we
And
had
perimeter.
Keeping the perimeter during the pandemic, that was adding a few more P's to our list. But our basic 4 P's that we tell vendors they've got to have, this comes up in our Vendor 101 class, is product. Obviously, you've got to have a great product. And actually, a question that didn't get answered that I popped on here, because I'm always surprised when I hear this, I always forget that this even happens, is somebody asked in one session, how many markets ask for samples in the application process before they let people in? And it just never even crossed my mind that you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You're curating a great product mix for your customers, so of course you do that, but apparently a lot of managers don't. So strongly recommend that. So product is important. You want to make sure that you're getting successful vendors into your market. So they got to have these things: a great product, great packaging, because a great product that's not packaged well will never get into shoppers' bags. They'll never find out that it's a great product. Mm-hmm. People shop with their eyes first, so they want to see that packaging.
Mm-hmm. Professionalism.
Yeah, professionalism. So that's the part where you show up at the market on time and you bring enough inventory so you don't run out midway through the market, and you always have your banner up and your tent's relatively clean, and you have your tent with you.
Maya can do that section because she's got the professionalism locked
It's
down.
Yeah, you've got your tablecloth. So it's having a professional tone, being responsible, showing up consistently at your market, being on time, playing nicely with other vendors, and then the last one, which is personality, because the thing that's unique to farmers markets that's not the same with any other kind of sales, whether you're doing online sales, whether you're loading units into a big box and shipping it off to Whole Foods to sell, you're talking to the customers at the farmers market. So it's not just about what's in your jar, it's you. A lot of people come to the farmers market not because it's easier to park, heavens knows, not because it's easier to shop. You don't have that central register. You got to keep pulling out your card or handing them your cash, and not necessarily because the pricing's better. Some things you can get a really good deal on, but some of our products aren't cheaper than you can get anywhere else. They come because they want a personal relationship. There's another P, with the producer of their product. There's so many P's involved.
And their produce.
So it's the personality that becomes the selling point for your product. They buy from you because they like you. And if you are the kind of person at a party that sits back in the corner and reads a book and doesn't really want to talk to anybody that you've never met before, you got to find that niece or nephew that's a bubbly person and put them in your booth, because if you're not talking to people, the farmer's market is not where you want to be selling. Personality is huge.
Yep.
Great summary. All right,
so many more.
We have so many. We will talk forever.
Yeah.
But a couple more things before we let everybody go and just fully digest this whirlwind of the 4 days, and before I take my year-long nap, before I hibernate for the season.
We have a market on Saturday. She has to wake up in a couple of days.
That's true. Don't remind me, it's Thursday. I only have tomorrow to recover.
Sorry.
Sleep all day tomorrow, though.
True.
Okay.
And I will. But I know it's like impossible for us to choose a favorite, and it's like choosing a favorite kid. It's like choosing a favorite session is so hard. And we heard, I can't even remember all the amazing things that happened over the last 4 days. But I asked everybody in the chat of which conference session was their favorite, or maybe I should say, which is the one that you've been thinking about the most, or is the most impactful, or the things that you are going to implement in your farmers market practice. And we're getting a lot of response that expanding the diversity, inclusion, and equality. Was it diversity, equality, inclusion?
Yes.
There's a lot of different letters. Was a big one, and that was definitely a big one for me too. Somebody mentioned on, I think, a feedback form, it was just really, really helpful, actionable items, kind of these small things that we can implement. And oftentimes it's hard to walk away from talks like that with like really specific things that you can apply. So I really, really enjoyed those sessions yesterday. We had a few that kind of touched on different aspects of building inclusion into your market. And so I enjoyed all 3 sessions yesterday that tapped into that.
I think so too. And I heard that feedback too, and that feedback was already in my head before we started, and that's why we structured those sessions the way we did. I find that I've been to a lot of uplifting and inspiring sessions from experts in that field. But what we needed was some nuts and bolts. What is it that's a problem? And so we were really careful and intentional about choosing our speakers and defining our sessions around that topic this year, because I really wanted to hear from the people on the ground that had that experience and that could share with us very specifically what we could do better and what kind of actual actionable steps we could take to fix some of the things that we see that could be improved.
Yeah, and people that really both that and have the firsthand experience and but also know the farmers market industry and know the challenges that farmers market managers and farmers and food makers are up against, and just kind of the nuances of this very #our job is weird thing that we do, and can give us things that we can apply specifically to our everyday jobs.
Absolutely, and that was the really tricky part. There were some really good DEI consultants out there, many of them people of color, that have terrific experience in HR and that kind of thing. But what we were really looking for was that level of expertise, and also somebody who'd been a farmers market manager or the executive director like Cedrina had of the Farmers Market Association, that really, or a vendor or a farmer like Chantel, that could really tell us from a farmers market point of view what we should be doing.
Yeah. I think Marcy Coburn, who was not a person of color, but that spoke at the market or at the conference a few years ago in person, she gave us some really good hands-on tools that we could do to really kind of move forward. And it wasn't just kind of talking about like, let's be inclusive. She was really kind of blunt about it and saying, okay, well, if you're saying no people of color, vendors or farmers are applying to your farmers market, and you say, well, no one's applying, what am I supposed to do? And she was saying, well, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Go reach out to those communities, go to commercial kitchens and see who's there, and reach out to people of color who are making food there, or give them scholarships to our Vendor 101 class, which we've done since then. Work with people that are in that space. So working really closely with Maya and getting her kind of, special eye on what's going on in the scene there to kind of help us and get people on your staff that are people of color. And it's just really something that we've been working hard doing since we've had someone kind of tell us these are some tools to do. And so it's really good to hear that and to listen to that. And I'm really grateful for the speakers that we had this year too, to just give us more actionable items we can do and not just like post on Facebook that, we support them.
Yeah.
Let's like put the boots on the ground. If you're a market manager, you have the power to
change the world,
change those, change things and change how your market is inclusive. Like, you are the one in charge of that.
Yeah.
Sorry, it comes to you. So,
Yeah.
Take that power and kind of go with it. And everyone that's here at the conference, I feel like, is taking that first step by getting the education that you need to do it. And then let's see it in action. So I'm excited to see what everyone does this year too. And we'll really be reaching out to a lot of farmers market managers and vendors and farmers that are at the conference that heard those sessions that can put those actions into use and see what they do. And I'm really excited to see this year how that turns into something kind of feasible and tangible.
Yeah, and we actually did an episode of Tent Talk with Marcy Coburn a couple of years ago, and in that episode she told us about, they kind of did like an audit of Kwesa, who she was the director of at the time, and so she talked a little bit about in that episode kind of the processes that they went through to really look at how Kwesa was could be more working on these issues. So if you want to look up that episode, I forget the number off the top of my head, but again, you can search through our podcast and look for Marcy Coburn, or I think if you just type in Kwesa, it should pop up too.
Probably find it.
For sure.
And then Valerie says that one of her favorite sessions was Marketing Matters, and that was 2 days ago. It's all running together. That was with Molly, and that was really so
helpful
good
too.
I want to know how many people changed the name of their Instagram profile after Molly's session, because I did.
We even went through all of our multiple Instagram handles that we have for our various markets and consulting businesses and such, and tuned things up. And it was things that we consider ourselves pretty proficient in Instagram. And we've been using it for a long time, and Molly's tips were really helpful for that. And I'm really glad that she was here this year and teaching all of us those things.
Yeah, I was kind of busy, but I didn't take as many notes as I usually do, and also just being watching things on my computer, I was just like, but one thing I did write down, like one of my few notes from this week is I wrote down a quote from Molly and it said, your Instagram profile is your business card.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I thought that was just like so clear and so concise, and also just kind of like explain how important it is in this digital age of like when I'm at a farmer's market, when I'm on vacation and, you know, or out of state or in a different area and I want to follow or I want to learn more about somebody, the first thing I do is I type it into Instagram, and if I don't find them on there, then I'm kind of just like, well, okay, and go on with my day.
I guess they don't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
They closed.
And so it just really just like legitimizes you as a business, and I know that kind of might seem like sad, but it's the truth.
It just is the world
It's
we're
the
living in.
modern day version of the Yellow Pages. You know, you didn't. You weren't anybody unless, like in The Jerk, you know, I'm somebody, the Yellow Pages are here. Then it was a website, and now it's Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to be there so that people can find you.
And it's better because you don't have to pay
Yeah.
Instagram. You don't. So you can pay to boost ads and do all those things, but it's a free tool that you just need to learn really those basic kind of tips to get it going and be there for your customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody asked in the chat that they missed this one. So this was called Marketing Matters, and it was be an Insta success.
Be an Insta success, and it was Molly Valent from Farmhouse Creative Marketing. You can look her up on Instagram.
Yeah,
she's actually
great.
away at a big retreat this week, and it was a little bit tricky. We had to shuffle our schedule a little bit to get her in because she could only be available to us on that one day at that one time. But we love her so much, and we think what she teaches is so valuable that we slid her in there. She made time in her schedule. We found a spot where she fit. So if you message her in the next day or two, she might not respond, but other than that, she's really responsive on Instagram. If you drop a question or something in the comment on one of her reels or one of her posts, she's really helpful.
Yeah, and that was another silver lining of us being able to do the virtual conference this year, is we were able to snag some really, really busy speakers and farmers and market managers and experts out there that it's sometimes hard to get them to fly out to San Diego and devote a weekend to us. But if we could just get them for 25 minutes or 45 minutes online, that seemed to fit with their lifestyle a little bit more. So that was a huge blessing.
Yeah, that helped us get a few people. J.M. Fortier, limited amount of time. Michael Kilpatrick from Growing Farmers, I thought his session was really
amazing.
valuable for display and just marketing techniques, customer service techniques. And again, he's one of those guys that it's really hard to get him out of Ohio over to San Diego. He's farming and he's consulting, but he was able to slip in this year since it was online.
Yeah, I want to get him on Tent Talk because we have a lot of questions for him.
Yes.
And that was just like a session that we were already a little behind time, and he kind of has this like fast clip of just like going through everything really, really quickly because he has so much amazing content to share. So we'll have to try to woo him back onto our podcast where we can dive deep on some of those topics.
Yeah, and I think we got a lot of feedback from even market managers who really appreciated those kind of sessions because it's teaching vendors how to, you know, make their display more appealing and make the most of your time at the farmer's market as a vendor. But as a market manager, that's something that you should really be familiar with, and you should be kind of always learning and educating yourself on, because it's also part of your job to make your vendors as successful as they can. It's not none of your business at the market. For your vendors, it is your business to help them be successful, because the better they're doing and the prettier their booth looks and the more they're, you know, getting those t-shirts out to their customers, that's a reflection on your market as well. So kind of seeing that cohesiveness, I think, is great. And Michael did a great job of kind of tying all that stuff together.
Yeah.
And we could even use some of those tips to make our info booth prettier.
That's true.
Oh boy.
Our info booth is...
Our info booth is not going to win any awards anytime soon.
It's been a wild year.
It's been a tough year.
I did put a plant on there this past Saturday.
Good job.
I felt very proud.
good.
I know. Justine was... Her masks weren't there because Justine wasn't there this Saturday, and I was like, "What am I going to put on the table?" I'm like, "I'll put a plant." I felt it just jazzed it up.
Well, maybe they should stay there because my masks, it's just all the random colors and designs that I think are cool. Obviously, I'm a print person, but some people didn't really like the prints that I chose.
They really come in handy, though.
Justine didn't have enough to do this year, so she sewed a lot of masks.
I did.
Right after we all got into that whole face covering thing, Justine started sewing. And we all have many Justine masks, and so do many of our customers. So.
I know, it's kind of like sweet and like wholesome, but sometimes embarrassing because I'll see like there's this older woman that comes to the market and she has like a first generation Justine face mask, and it's all like crooked and wonky, and it was before I perfected it and before I could sew in a straight line. So
She loves it.
I'm on like version 8 now, and now they're much more comfortable, but
It's
it
doing the
works for
job.
her.
It's
Doing the
vintage.
job.
It's vintage.
Yeah, vintage. Reminds us of those days.
Those
Yikes.
early days.
Yeah.
Ooh. Not sure we want to remember
On
those.
that note.
Yeah. But speaking of which, and I guess that we could maybe wrap up with the first session of just, I just wanted to give a shout out to Kara May for being our first speaker of the conference, and I just loved her presentation of all the silver linings from this last year. It's been a wild ride, and she just really presented it in a inspiring and sweet way, and she did a lot of work to collect feedback and experiences from across the country and across the state. So shout out for Kara. She was awesome, and also was the guinea pig for
Kind of our
our
sacrificial
virtual
lamb for
platform.
the platform, right?
But she was the best because she was very
She
go with the
was.
flow, and she's amazing. And I like that we kind of kicked off the whole thing with silver linings, because I did notice kind of a theme, like in the chat in every session, people, they weren't saying this is my silver lining, but just comments everyone was making were just little silver linings, talking about in one of the sessions, someone commented, we had to move our market that's been there for a couple decades because of COVID, but they ended up, I'm assuming, moving inside, and now they can have a year-round market. Where before they must have been outside, and it was seasonal. So, really counting those silver linings. And I liked how those were just kind of sprinkled in throughout the whole conference, because we're going forward to better. We're trying to take a positive note, take our lessons learned, and take all those things, those changes we had to make last year, and just kind of move them forward and make them into a positive thing. So
Yeah, good to remember.
love it.
Yeah. Got any other burning questions in there, or are we wrapping up, Justine?
Well, the last question is, what are we doing next?
Yikes.
I
Besides
don't know why I
napping.
put this on our outline, but
I'm assuming you mean after a deep sleep.
after a deep sleep, after a couple home-cooked meals,
Yeah. there we
need
go.
to do some laundry,
That's right.
pet my cat,
Yep.
say hi to my husband without yelling at him. But we mentioned this earlier. We are working on a Market Manager 101 course, which I'm really excited about, and I think that
We're
will
going
be
to tune up Vendor 101 too. We took that online as one of our silver linings, but we did it pretty fast because we couldn't have in-person classes anymore. So we're going to expand that a bit and refresh it a little bit, so it'll be even more valuable to managers that want to point their vendors in that direction and give them a leg up.
Yeah.
And then
I think we're going to do a lot more work on our membership program.
Yeah.
And, like we said earlier this year, we relaunched our website. We worked on that. We worked on getting Vendor 101 up online. And we're getting more and more tech savvy. So we're going to figure out how to make our Farmers Market Pros membership program work for everybody in a nice, succinct, virtual way. And I think start working on 2022.
that's right. Work towards 2022.
We should probably start earlier than we did.
Definitely starting earlier. Hopefully there'll be no new pandemic or incredible natural disaster between now and then, and we'll be able to concentrate. But this one was thinking about it, but not being able to make a lot of decisions about the conference until kind of late in the game, because trying to figure out if we could be live and in person, or if we need to go virtual, and what kind of tech we needed to use, and that kind of thing. But Market Manager 101, I'm really excited about. And maybe we won't call it 101. Maybe we'll call it something else. 202, 101, 202, something. We'll
Market
give it a
Manager Success.
We'll give it a catch. Yeah, Market Manager Success. We'll give it a catchy name. But the whole idea is that we'll be able to supply classes you can watch at your own pace in a modular way that will help you be a better market manager, whether you're just starting out or tuning up. There's a lot of new market managers coming online. That's something we've talked about, I think, in a recent tent talk, but there's a lot, or maybe an email, but we're seeing so many jobs posted for everything from executive directors to line managers that, at the info booth in markets. This has been a rough year. There's some people that have retired a little earlier than they planned to, I think. And markets in some ways are expanding, because one of those silver linings is those online markets are going to be bringing their on-site back, and that may take another group of managers to help manage both of those things at once. So market manager education.
Yeah, and if you are a market manager and there's something that you think that we should include, shoot us an email. I mean, obviously, our experience is in large urban markets, and we operate a big Saturday market, and we've operated a couple weekly markets. But if you are a market manager that is looking for information in kind of a different area or a different type of market, then let us know what we can include to help you out, because we definitely have obviously an amazing community that we can draw on the knowledge of. And so we want to make sure that we are presenting information that's applicable to all types of markets.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Allie and Courtney will make sure you get that information.
That's right.
They're saying yes. Awesome. All right. Well, nap time?
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll just say goodbye. We have a few people left in here. And thank you, everybody, for coming to the conference and tuning in to Tent Talk.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Now you get to see behind the scenes just how complicated and technical it is. We gather around a microphone and we share our thoughts.
Yep.
That's it. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for being here.
Farmers markets are all about community, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Connect with people just like you from various parts of the country and share what's happening in your area in the terrific conversations over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. Please find us there, answer the 3 qualifying questions, and join the group. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or shoot us an email at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. If you're just getting started in farmers markets, check out our Vendor 101 online course at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks so much for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us and others how you're enjoying it. If you're listening to YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni-Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week. Tune in.